Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of Hit the Pacecar. Whether you're watching on YouTube or on Spotify, we are doing things a little bit different this weekend. Well, this week, we are a little bit late with the show, as I was pretty late with some of my shows on my personal YouTube and Spotify as well. As some of you know, we went to Phoenix Raceway this past weekend, and then tomorrow morning, me and Cory are leaving for Las Vegas Motor Speedway, where we're going to be camping out, and then Tyler should be there on Friday afternoon at some point. We have some things to talk about, a couple of news stories to go over, and then our experience in Phoenix Raceway this weekend. But as every week, I am joined by my co-hosts, Cory and Tyler. Cory, how are we doing here today?
I'm living the great life. Just got off a great Phoenix Raceway weekend on the way to Vegas. Can't be happier.
Yeah, I'm excited for Phoenix Raceway. I mean, Vegas. I liked Phoenix Raceway this past week, and I'm very excited to get back to Vegas Motor Speedway this weekend. But Tyler, how are we feeling today?
And we're feeling good. Like you guys said, had a great weekend at Phoenix. Excited to head off to Vegas, man. Vegas has become my favorite track quickly.
Yeah, I like Vegas. I really like Vegas a lot. I like the infield quite a bit. I think it puts on some good racing, some high speeds, and stuff like that. And we'll give more of our thoughts on Las Vegas near the end of this episode. But I can't wait. I'm very excited to go to Las Vegas Motor Speedway, watch the Holler Parade on the Strip. We got some high limit racing this weekend as well. That'll be pretty cool. We got high limit on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I'm not sure which ones I want to go to yet. I might go to just Thursday. I'm not sure yet. It really just depends on how the week goes. But I plan on going to at least Thursday for the high limit racing, and that will be a lot of fun. No trucks this weekend, which is a very big missed opportunity. The trucks will not be going to Vegas at all this year, and I got some that really grinds my gears. I got a bone to pick with that one. But let's get into the weekend of events that we had in Phoenix Raceway in this week's edition of the Weekend Rundown. We only had the Cup Series and the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series this past week, and we also did have the IndyCar, and we will talk briefly about our Desert Double experience in a little bit. But with this weekend, we did have Cup and O'Reilly in Phoenix Raceway. The race was mainly dominated by Jesse Love. Some of you may remember the championship race last season was completely dominated by Jesse Love, and it looked like we were going to have a very similar race on Saturday night for the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, the GovX 200. And Jesse Love just was unable to finish the job. Then it looked like for a little bit there that Sheldon Creed could have potentially won the race. He had the lead in the late going. And then the king, in my opinion, of Phoenix Raceway in the O'Reilly Series, you have Kevin Harvick, who is the GOAT of the Cup Series at Phoenix Raceway, the GOAT of the O'Reilly Series, Xfinity Series, Nationwide, Busch Series, would be Justin Allgaier. And honestly, didn't I didn't feel like he had a winning car. I felt like he had like a third to fifth place car most of the race, but at the very end, all of a sudden he just turned it on 1,000, got up to the front, and didn't look back, and got another victory at Phoenix. Only led like 10 laps, and they were the most important 10 laps of the whole entire race. So Allgaier with a very clutch victory. And I will get to Cory on this, but I really want to get to Tyler first on this one, because Tyler is the Allgaier super fan. We're going to be talking a lot about Justin Allgaier during this episode. Tyler, how did you feel about that Allgaier victory? You were very, very hyped in that moment for that victory.
Man, I was hyped that entire race. So if you watched, pay attention to Alligator during that race, he went from, I believe it was 23rd up
Mm-hmm.
to 10th, and then back down to 19th, and then from 19th back up to 5th. Like, he was everywhere on Saturday, and it was awesome to watch. And then, like you said, at the end, came out of nowhere to secure that victory. And I don't think, man, that rivaled, my excitement rivaled the championship for sure.
Yeah, it was in a very exciting way that he was able to get it done. And I have to give a lot of credit to my dad's buddy Isaac's dad, Perry. He was telling me the whole entire race, Justin Allgaier is going to win this thing. He kept on telling me, and I'm like, all right, Perry, okay. And then he eventually got up there and freaking won. And I was like, oh damn! I gave him his flowers after the race. And I remember I walked up to you, Tyler, with just I think 5, like right when he took the lead, or right before. I think it was right before actually he took the lead, and I was like, yeah, Justin Allgaier is going to win this race when he was in second place, and he won it. I can't believe it. I didn't feel like he had a winning car, and he figured it out. That's why Allgaier's one of the greatest drivers to ever race in the O'Reilly series. But Cory, how did you feel about the end of that race? You had Sheldon Creed that had like a great opportunity to win. It looked like he was going to win. It seemed like you even thought at one point that he did win the race. How did you feel about the end of this race? Because you were hyped when Allgaier won. I feel like you were just hyped for Tyler, but that was a pretty cool moment as well on the front straightaway. But how did you feel about the race?
I mean, we're both Haas Factory Team fans, so I thought Creed was going to win, and it didn't happen. But Allgaier is like my second favorite in that series, so and I know he's Tyler's favorite, so seeing Justin Allgaier pull it off was awesome. The whole race was great, and then those final laps, seeing Allgaier pull it off, it was great.
Yeah, it was great to see Allgaier pull it off. Allgaier is just such a great driver, one of the best drivers in O'Reilly Auto Parts Series history. And then Phoenix, he makes Phoenix his bitch sometimes. Like, he's just so good at Phoenix Raceway. And I just felt like that was one of the weakest races I've ever seen Allgaier have at Phoenix. But then when it really counted, he was just there at the right time. And from what Tyler's saying, I might have not noticed that at some points during the race, he was coming back and forth throughout the field, very similar to what Ryan Blaney had did on Sunday. Bubba Wallace also did that on Sunday. A couple of drivers that had to go through the field a couple of times. We saw Zilic do that at Coda a couple weeks ago as well. But overall, just a great race we had in the O'Reilly Series. I feel like the O'Reilly Series usually puts on a good event for Phoenix. It's the Cup Series is what I'm usually worried about. And I thought the Cup race was probably the best race of the weekend. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. We had Jesse Love dominate, coming short of winning the race. Got a feel for Jesse Love. And then Sheldon Creed, a heartbreaker. Looked like he was going to get 2 wins within 3 races. That would have been pretty cool. And then, of course, Alligator, Lil Gator, Justin Allgaier getting the dub in the GovX 200. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. All right, now that we are done with the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, honestly, not a lot to talk about with the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series this past weekend, but I do think there is a decent amount to talk about when it comes to the NASCAR Cup Series, and then we'll talk about our IndyCar Desert Double experience, just our overall experience at Phoenix over the weekend, because it was overall a really strong weekend for Phoenix Raceway. But we got to talk about the tires and the horsepower. In last year's championship race, we had these tires that we raced this past Sunday introduced. And before this race this past weekend, I thought last year's, taking out my personal thing with Denny Hamlin and all that at the end of the race, taking that out of the fact, I personally thought just the on-track performance, it was by far the best race we've ever seen at Phoenix Raceway for the championship race last year. But this year, one up. And we had the same tires, but we had increased horsepower going from the 680 to the 750 horsepower for Phoenix Raceway. And I think that made a huge difference when it comes to braking zones, when it comes to your exit. You don't want to get too much on the gas. You might get the car a little bit loose because of all the horsepower. We saw issues with the tires throughout the weekend, whether it was practice, qualifying, and the race. We saw some tire blowouts. Just overall, just some fantastic racing. The best race, I would say, at Phoenix Raceway, in my opinion. But Cory, what were your thoughts on the racing that we saw at Phoenix Raceway?
That race was awesome. I mean, there was a lot there that we can talk about. The horsepower, the braking, the passing, everywhere. The 3 wides in both corners that you never see. Ryan Blaney going from the back to the front 3 times, it felt like. And I was rooting for Blaney because he was my pick. So seeing him and watching him the entire time, you saw how everyone could maneuver, when they wanted to, rather than just getting blocked by the dirty air constantly all race. So I was a huge fan of the race. The cautions were timely. All of it was great.
Yeah, I was overall. I really liked the race. I'd say it was overall very enjoyable. We had the action. We had a bunch of comers and goers, which is something I just love from NASCAR racing. Is when we get those comers and goers. That's always the best for me. I just like to see that. But Tyler, what were your thoughts on the race?
It was a great race. I mean, I've been going to Phoenix for a very long time, so it's hard for me to say that's the best race Phoenix has produced. But it's definitely up there, 100%. It reminded me of old school racing down at Phoenix. So before the reconfiguration down at Phoenix, this is a lot alike how you would actually see the racing at Phoenix. So I don't think I've seen that since they've reconfigured Phoenix. So that was awesome to see. I mean, it was a little bit an abnormally hot day, so we had a little bit more pressure on those tires for sure. If you were in the sun, man, it was scorcher for sure on Sunday, and I think that definitely had some play into it. But horsepower, tires, everything had a definitely a little bit more to do with everything, and it was like you guys said, one of the best races we've seen in Phoenix in a long time.
Yeah, it was overall just a great race. I would consider it a barn burner. I even looked at the post race poll for Jeff Gluck and Jordan Bianchi, and I think that was like 85 or something like that. A really good number for post race poll. Everybody seemed to enjoy the race, and Blaney's also a pretty popular driver amongst fans. Whether that's your favorite driver, I don't know anybody that dislikes Ryan Blaney per se. So that was probably a fairly popular win, I would say. Maybe it would be a lot different if Ty Gibbs won that race. Maybe it would have been like 70 or 75 or something like that. I found myself cheering
Yeah.
for Baby Gibbs in those late laps. I'm not going to fake. I never thought I'd actually say that, but when it came down to it, I found myself cheering for Baby Gibbs a little bit at the end of that race. Overall, just a great race. But let's get down to the end of this thing. We had Christopher Bell just completely dominate most of this race. And it looked like in my opinion, he made the right call by taking the 4 fresh Goodyears, but just some late cautions really got in the way of him potentially getting after Ryan Blaney. And I think he was 3 laps short of making the pass on Ryan Blaney to win that race. If you wanted to get dirty, maybe 2 laps, but I just don't see Christopher Bell as that sort of driver. He reminds me so like I always bring this up. He reminds me so much of Martin Truex Jr. He's so much like Martin Truex Jr. in pretty much every on track, not off of track, but on track. He's just like Truex in my opinion. I just wouldn't expect him to do anything crazy. But Blaney ended up taking the dub. Blaney ended up taking the dub at one of his best racetracks. He was the second best all day, I would say. And just Bell couldn't get there. Another driver I would like to make note of is Bubba Wallace. I felt like Bubba Wallace was the third best car in the field. He had to go through back and forth through the field 3 times and was never able to quite get up to the front in that winning sort of position. I'm wearing my Reddick shirt. Reddick wasn't able to make it 4 in a row, but he got another top 10. Denny Hamlin, I thought Hamlin was going to be a big threat to win the race, and he was probably a top 5 car. I think he ended up finishing like 6th, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe 8th, something like that, right outside the top 5. And just, it was Blaney. There was tier 1, that was Bell. Tier 2 was Blaney, and then there wasn't even tier 3. It was tier 4 at that point. Like, those two were just by far the best. But Tyler, what did you think about the end of that race with Blaney, Bell? Do you think I still think the 4 tire call was the correct call? It just didn't work out for Bell, and then Gibbs was thrown in there too. I mentioned him a second ago. Ty Gibbs almost got his first win. What do you think about all that?
I mean, it was a crazy ending for sure. I think definitely the two-tire call is I think the two-tire call is going to always be the go-to call on that for sure at Phoenix because it's just, especially when you get down to the end there, I don't think you're ever going to have enough runoff time to actually beat anybody with 4 tires. But, it was a great race. Like you said, at the end there, Baby Gibbs was looking like he actually might get something.
Yeah, I thought he was for a second there, and for a long time, I had definitely a big soft spot for Baby Gibbs. Growing up, a big fan of Joe Gibbs and Joe Gibbs Racing, so I always wanted to like him, and I always try to like him. But the way, not necessarily some of his actions on track, I'm not a big fan of. It's mainly the way he handles himself off of the racetrack and doesn't really take any accountability. Where I started really disliking Baby Gibbs is when he got in that fight with Sam Mayer, and you see Sam Mayer on pit road at Martinsville like take your helmet off so we can fight. Like, to take your helmet off. And while he's saying that, Ty Gibbs just socks him in the face with his helmet on. It was such a pussy move, and that's where kind of my dislike for Gibbs really started. And then everything that's gone on recently, it's left a bad taste in my mouth with all the Gabe Hart, Joe Gibbs racing stuff. That's left a really bad taste in my mouth, not just with Ty Gibbs, but even with Coach Gibbs himself. That kind of has me disappointed if some of these alleged things end up being true. It really kind of depresses me being a big Joe Gibbs fan. But when it came down to it with a couple of laps to go, all of a sudden I was like, go Ty. I just found myself in my head just being like, go Ty, go win. Because it would have been storybook if Baby Gibbs won it. His dad passed away after he won the championship at Phoenix Raceway. His dad died at Phoenix Raceway. He passed away at Phoenix Raceway. So I thought that would be pretty storybook for him to win his first Cup race. It would have been a very emotional. He probably would have made fans of a lot of people if he did win that race, because it would have been a very, very emotional celebration, and we would have actually seen some personality out of Ty Gibbs, which I've never seen before. All I've seen is Silver Spoon. I've never seen a personality from Baby Gibbs, so I thought that would have been pretty cool. But Blaney, none of those Blaney fans got to throw toasters in their bathtubs this week, because he got to victory lane with that badass young Sam Elliott looking mustache. Like, that was awesome. Cory, what were your thoughts on those late laps?
I mean, I said earlier, I was rooting for Blaney the entire day, even as a Larson fan. It was either Larson or Blaney to win that race because he was my pick, and I just thought he had the dominant car. And watching him go through the field twice, I was like, he deserves this win. And then Bell led the whole race. So obviously, I think one of those two winning, all the fans would have been happy because both those drivers deserved to win. And seeing it come down to a 4-tire call and a 2-tire call reminded me of the championship race. And this time the 2-tire call won again. And Larson almost took advantage of it too again. So I know the whole race ended up being great. And it came down to those final laps. And like you said, I think Bell needed 3 more.
Yeah, I have heard the comparison to last year's championship race. I will push back on that a little bit, because I do feel like they are very different situations, because last year it was green, white, checkered, I think, late laps when that ended up happening. And if we didn't have those cautions, Bell would have won. Like,
I agree.
I think Blaney probably would have gotten second just because he drove so far out in front. I think he would have gotten second. Just a little bit, a similar situation in some ways, but very different in some ways as well. And the 2-tire call ended up being the winning call, but I felt like the 4-tire call was the right call. And I forget who I told right before that last pit stop. I was like, you need to take 4 tires here, and that's the winning. I don't think it was you.
You put it in the group chat.
Oh, did I put it in the group chat? Okay. But yeah, I thought I told at least somebody about it. 4 tires was the winning call. And if we didn't have those cautions late, maybe it would have been the winning call. Who knows? But Ryan Blaney ends up getting his first win of the year. Seabell, heartbroken, comes just short, but he'll win a race soon. Seabell is a hell of a driver. And 2 straight 4th place finishes, by the way, for Ty Gibbs. 4th place in 2 straight weeks. So maybe that first win is right around the corner. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. How did you feel about the race at Phoenix Raceway? And how did you feel about the finish with the Ryan Blaney victory and Seabell getting P2? All right, before we move on from Phoenix Raceway, I do want to give us the chance to talk about our overall experience at Phoenix Raceway, and included in that is the Desert Double, the Duel in the Desert, whatever the hell you wanna call it. IndyCar. It was all of our first IndyCar Series race. That'll kind of be my first question to the boys on this. I personally loved the IndyCar Series race. It was quite enjoyable. Obviously, didn't recognize every paint scheme in the field, but that's just part of the game. But eventually, by the end of the race, I learned who everybody was in the field. I had a decent grasp of most of the drivers in the field, but took me a little bit to figure out exactly who each of the drivers were, but just how much grip they're able to have around that small track, and it being a flatter track as well, and them zipping around that track at 180 plus miles per hour at times, I think was just badass. Very intense racing. Anytime anybody got side by side, I immediately was like, "Holy shit, they might wreck!" Oh my gosh! Like I immediately clenched my cheeks. Like anytime they would get next to each other, because I was waiting for a wreck. And these IndyCar cars wreck hard too. These open wheel cars. We saw some big crashes in qualifying and practice. There were some wrecks early on in the race as well, and it was overall just a really good race. And Joseph Newgarden proved why he's one of the greatest of all time. Came out of nowhere near the end of that race and made a bunch of clutch passes. Ended up getting the victory, a hell of a victory for him. A great weekend for Penske, by the way, because Blaney was cheering on Newgarden on Saturday, and Newgarden was there in his Blaney shirt on Sunday. And Penske swept the Cup Series and the IndyCar Series, so that had to be a good day for Roger Penske and might make him want to do the Desert Double again. I think it was very successful, especially from the IndyCar standpoint. I saw the ratings this week. The Cup Series ratings went up like 1%, which isn't that from the average from last year. Went up 1%, so that's okay. It's not bad. But then for the IndyCar Series, they went up. They increased their viewership by over 50% from last year's race at this time because of the Phoenix Raceway race. They had over 1.5 million viewers for the IndyCar Series, and if IndyCar wants to do it again, it's going to happen, because I think NASCAR wants to do these things. IndyCar are the ones that I think are like a little bit more iffy about it, because it's a different crowd, different sort of tracks, a little bit different than what they're used to. And we mainly run ovals, they mainly run road courses. So I would expect the Desert Double to be back next year, them to do IndyCar and Cup Series, and maybe even see a couple more. I know we already have St. Pete with the trucks and IndyCar, but I can see IndyCar and the Cup Series maybe sharing Sonoma Raceway, a couple other tracks maybe on the schedule. That maybe Gateway. They tried it with Gateway a couple of years ago. Maybe they can try that again. They can do some interesting stuff with the IndyCar and Cup Series. They seem like they have a great relationship, and Fox is kind of making a lot of that stuff happen. So I got to give some credit to Fox on that. Tyler, how did you feel about your first IndyCar Series experience, and do you think the Desert Double should come back and maybe even get more of these IndyCar Series, Cup Series doubleheaders?
It was a great race. So I didn't really get too invested with the drivers or anything like that. I just kind of really
Yeah.
wanted to enjoy the race as a whole. So it turned out really well. I mean, I enjoyed it. It was fans were pretty, I mean, excited. The stands were pretty packed. I mean, for the most part, it seemed like it went over well. You had Rogers, I believe it was 60th anniversary party held down there
Yep.
at the Penske Museum down in Scottsdale Saturday night. So you know that was one hell of a party after them winning that IndyCar race and then following it up Sunday with that after party. So you know that's good to see. You know Roger wanted to get both of those cars in victory lane that day. It was big for him. Fox had a huge day with their involvement and their ownership with IndyCar. I mean, I think it's all pointing towards this being a good idea and them doing more races together. I don't see why Roger or Fox or anybody else would push against it. NASCAR brought viewership to them, and NASCAR could use some filler time and some filler races if we're not going to do practice. So might as well.
Yeah, I think it was a great move. I think it was a very successful weekend when it comes to the IndyCar Series part, and just an overall very successful weekend for Phoenix Raceway. There wasn't trucks there this weekend, which I always like to see the trucks out there, but I understand that they're not out there this weekend. They'll be in Phoenix later in the year. But overall, just a great weekend. We had a great O'Reilly Series race. The Indy cars really impressed, and the Cup Series race was a barn burner. Corey, how did you feel about this Desert Double?
That was my first ever IndyCar race, and I loved it. I mean, I had less expectations for what I was going to see, and I had an entertaining time. As a NASCAR diehard, I always prefer the NASCAR race, but the IndyCar race was just, the speed was insane to see in person. I think that's what catches your eye the most. The speed, it almost doesn't look real with how they're racing. And that race mixed with the Xfinity or the O'Reilly race the same day is awesome. The whole day was amazing, and I mean, I hope they do it again.
Yeah, I sure hope they do it again. I think that would be pretty awesome. And like I said, I think we're going to see a couple more of these. I don't think we're going to see them like every other week, but I could see maybe 3 or 4 of these sort of weekends throughout the year. I think that would be, like I said, I think Gateway would be a good place for it. Sonoma. I'm just trying to think of tracks that are already on the IndyCar series schedule that they can maybe push together or something like that. Maybe they can add Chicagoland to the IndyCar schedule in 2027. That could be pretty cool. I think that would be pretty dope. I don't know if that would be too dangerous for them or not. Not sure, but we could see some. I think we could see some good double headers with the IndyCar series and the NASCAR Cup series, and most likely on the first half of the schedule because they have the relationship with Fox, and with both races going on Fox, they can co-promote. I don't know if I'll necessarily expect this happening like during the chase, during NBC's window. I don't think I would really expect to see this during the TNT window. Maybe during the Prime window because it seems like Prime are just willing to do more things. So maybe during the Prime window, I can see them. Maybe they can do. Maybe if they end up doing the Denver Street Course next year, or whatever street course they do next year, maybe that could be IndyCar and Cup Series on a street course. I think that would be pretty cool. That would get a lot of people in for that one. I think that'd be pretty cool. That might be a good idea. But let us know your thoughts in the comments. How did you feel about the Desert Double IndyCar Series, Cup Series in Phoenix? Okay, right before we move away from Phoenix, we do want to quickly talk about just overall our experience at Phoenix this weekend. We had some interesting events. We had the Distillery Fest and just an overall a good time in Phoenix Raceway going into the infield and just our overall experience at Phoenix Raceway. I guess I'll start with Tyler in this one because Tyler, I think, is more of the vet for Phoenix Raceway than both of us. I've been going there the last 5 or 6 years, 7 years maybe even at this point. Cory, how many years have you been going to Phoenix, you'd say?
4.
4 years for Cory. And then Tyler has been going on and off pretty much since he was a kid. So, Tyler, I want to get your perspective on how this weekend as a whole for Phoenix Raceway, the way the facility is nowadays and all of that, how does that compare to some of the things you've seen in the past at Phoenix Raceway?
I mean, it was a great weekend for Phoenix. They set things up wonderfully. They're finally figuring out how to set up the midway in a good way that keeps people engaged.
Yeah.
I mean, back in the day, they didn't have any of the facilities they have now. They don't, the Escalades were running smoothly. I mean, everything that you can hope for was happening at Phoenix this weekend. So, I mean, their bathrooms are always nice. They have hundreds of them. Porta potties are always clean. I mean, Phoenix does everything right for the
Period.
most part. You can't really complain when it comes to Phoenix.
Yeah, I don't know. I love the facility of Phoenix. I think it's a very beautiful, well put together facility. The infield's awesome. My only complaint about the infield, and I always make it, you can't watch the race from in there. You have to kind of use the TVs, which kind of sucks. But other than that, it's if you want to meet your favorite driver, that is the best infield for meeting your favorite driver. I'd probably put Las Vegas second on that aspect, but Vegas I'd still say is the best infield because you can actually watch the race from the infield. You can hang out in the infield. You don't have to leave. You don't ever have to leave the infield. With Phoenix, if you care about the racing at all, you eventually have to leave the infield. You can't just hang out there all day and get drunk. In Las Vegas infield, you can do what you want. But if you want to meet your favorite driver, you want to go into that Phoenix Raceway infield. You can get really close to the cars and see them all up close and personal. And if you get there at the right time and you're trying to meet the right driver, you'll get an autograph. Like me with Kyle Busch, I know. Kyle Busch walks away. He walks away every time. But if you want to meet Ryan Blaney
And
or then yeah. What were you about to say, Tyler?
I was gonna say, and Phoenix does a wonderful job too with it seems like making sure the drivers are at their haulers, setting them up at other events down the midway. I mean, you can really catch those drivers all out and about. I caught Noah Gragson twice on
Yep.
Sunday alone. I mean, Connor, everybody. So Phoenix is great for it. Really, seriously is. To find drivers is a great place to do it.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. I think it's great if you want to meet your favorite driver, that's probably the number one track on the schedule where you can because some of these weekends you're like for example Daytona 500 weekend, unless you're getting like a bunch of merch from the hauler, you don't have really any chance of meeting your favorite driver in the Daytona 500 with it being such a big weekend when it comes to media obligations and stuff like that. And I'm surprised there wasn't more media obligations this past weekend because of the doubleheader situation. One thing I also wanted to talk about briefly was the Stillery Fest that we had. They had some bull riding out in the camping area. They had some concerts out in the camping area. They've been doing the barn the last couple of years, and the barn was still a thing this year. I don't know. We never checked it out, I don't think, this year. So I don't know how well the barn went this year. That might have been hurt pretty bad by the Stillery. Not sure. Maybe Jeff Gordon's probably pretty upset about that because Jeff Gordon bought that a couple of years ago, and it hasn't lived up to expectations for the most part. But the Stillery Fest, I think, was really good. I think there's definitely some things that they need to work on. They didn't have the bathrooms inside the Stillery Fest, and I think that's something they're going to end up working on. The music ended up finishing around like 10 o'clock, 10:30, for at least the live performances, finished up around 10 o'clock, 10:30 each of the nights. And we ended up running into the guy that does a lot of the setting up for it, pretty much owns the whole thing. A guy named Steve, and he did a good job, and he listened to what we had to say about it, and it sounds like they're coming back in October for the Stillery Fest. Not sure exactly what it'll end up being. Another thing I wanted to tell him too, but I didn't bother bringing it up just because I don't think he was going to be down for it because people want to make money and stuff, was just let people in with their own drinks, because that's what they've done at like when I go to any of these concerts at these NASCAR events. People just walk up with their solo cups with a cooler full of beer or whatever and just hang out and watch the concert. But I understand why they probably had that set up, because you want to make a buck. You want to make some money off selling some drinks. So I understood that. So I never brought that up to him because I thought that would be like, hell no. How are we going to make money? How are we going to make money off this thing? I was waiting for that. But they had the bull riding, which I thought was very interesting that they had bull riding. That was one thing that he mentioned as well, and a lot of people were also in agreement that the ring was potentially a little bit too small for the bull riding, but they were able to make it work, and it sounds like they're going to make that bigger for October, more room for the bull to run around, because I think that was a concern for a lot of people. I never really looked at it as a huge concern, but I guess I get some people's concern on that. And overall, it was a good time. Unfortunately, we ended up getting there just because the live music ended so early. We would end up getting there right when the live music was finishing both nights. One night you had the UFC fights, and we didn't end up making there until a little bit later. And the first night, I personally thought they were going to run the live music a lot later, and we showed up and they were already done. Yep. They started the live performance. We went back to the camper to pour ourselves up a drink and hang out for not even 10 minutes, and by the time we came back, they were all done. So that kind of blew. But the idea they have for this Stillery Fest at Phoenix Raceway, I think, is golden. They just need to mold it a little bit more and make it a little bit better in some ways, and I think it's going to just be extremely popular. And it seemed like it was already popular to begin with, because there was a lot of people up there when they were doing the performances, and especially the bull riding. It was pretty packed in there when they were doing the bull riding. Tyler, you didn't end up checking out the Stillery Fest all, did you, or no? I forget.
Unfortunately, I didn't get to stick around, but I did walk through. It was cool. It's definitely a smart idea. I mean, you're stuck at that parking lot for so long, you might as well have something to do before you leave.
And that was one cool thing too, because they did have it. They didn't really have the live performances throughout the day, but they had the area open throughout a good amount of the day, so you can go up there and get food, or they had like 3 different shops that were just selling cowboy hats. I think they need to put more variety in there. I think that'd probably be another note. I don't know if we need 3 or 4 different shops for just cowboy hats. I don't know about that. Maybe 1 or 2 shops for cowboy hats, and throw some other things in there. Maybe throw a NASCAR, like a Phoenix Raceway merchandise hauler in there or something like that. And throw like some Chase Elliott gear in there, some Larson gear, throw some popular drivers. Just throw one of those NASCAR haulers in there maybe, or something like that. I think that would probably help with a lot of those sort of sales too. I think there's definitely, like I said, I think it could just be molded a little bit differently, and I think it could be pretty fantastic. But Cory, how did you overall feel about the Stillery Fest?
I mean, I loved it. I think you hit the nail on the head on most of the things. There's small things they can fix, like live music till 11, 11:30, midnight, whatever they can do. Bringing the restrooms inside. There's small things, but as a whole, the Stillery Fest was awesome, and Phoenix needs to bring it back. Like, it was awesome just as a camping experience. You can walk around, bring friends, family, and just go see live music and have a good time out not far away from your campsite. Not have to go all the way to the track to see it. So I loved it. I hope they bring it back. And once again, I think we're saying it was great. We're just nitpicking the tiny things that
Yeah,
would make it
exactly.
excellent.
Yeah, exactly. Because I told the guy Steve Kovac, I think his name was. I told him, like, this is a great idea. This is a beautiful idea. It just needs to just be molded a little bit. Like, move the, because that was probably the dumbest thing, is that they had all the bathroom stalls, all the porta potties outside of the venue. So we had to go through security to get to the porta potties. Then you have to go back through security to to after the porta potties, and I'm not sure why they did that. Honestly, it's probably more dangerous that they have it out there instead of inside. In my opinion, I think it's kind of weird that they did that. I didn't understand the move at all. I think the only excuse they could have that move is maybe they just didn't have enough room for them, and they just didn't have enough room to put them inside, so they had to put them outside. That's the only thing I could think of. Other than that, I didn't understand that really at all. But everything else, it just needs to be molded, massaged a little bit, and I think it's going to be really cool. It's going to be really cool. So anybody that's on the West Coast and likes NASCAR, head to Phoenix Raceway in October. You get the Cup Series, you get the O'Reilly Series, you get the Craftsman Truck Series. The barn will be open. You'll get the Distillery Fest. I'm not going to call it the actual name, but you got the bar. You got a pretty fun bar in the camping area that we go to. That's a blast of a time. So anybody that's a big fan of NASCAR racing, I recommend camping at Phoenix Raceway in October. But let us know your thoughts in the comments. Were you at Phoenix Raceway this past weekend? And if you were, how did you feel about the Distillery Fest? And overall, how did you feel about the atmosphere this weekend? The IndyCar fans were camping out there. It was still mainly NASCAR people camping out there. But it was a very interesting atmosphere for sure in Phoenix Raceway this past weekend. All right, let's move to our two. Well, we really only have one real news story to talk about this weekend, and that is, once again, Alex Bowman is out of the 48 car, but this time will be replaced by Justin Allgaier. And I know Tyler is extremely hyped about this. I'm pretty excited about this myself, because I've said it many times. Justin Allgaier has never had a true opportunity in the Cup Series. I remember he drove the number 51 for H. Scott Motorsports years ago in that Phoenix construction machine, and that car, no offense to whoever owned that car was dog shit. That car was not at all competitive. He was never going to win races or get top 10s or get top 20s in that car. And other than that, he hasn't really had any opportunities. I will always remember when I think he ended up jumping in for Jimmy Johnson in the number 48 at the Brickyard 400, and his car died like 2 laps into the race or something like that. I was like, what? You finally get this golden opportunity with Hendrick Motorsports, and his car, like, I think he blew an engine, or I don't remember exactly what happened. It was years ago, but I remember he went out within like the first couple laps of the race. I'm like, that freaking sucks. And he just really hasn't had a great opportunity since. I thought he really impressed when he was driving for Allgaier. I mean, not driving for Allgaier, driving for Larson in the Coca-Cola 600 while Larson was out there trying to be an open wheel racer. I was very impressed by what Allgaier was able to do in that event. And I don't think he's going to win this weekend in Las Vegas, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him get a top 15, maybe even a top 10. I wouldn't consider Las Vegas necessarily one of his best racetracks, but in the Cup Series, the Hendrick Motorsports has had a lot of success there. Alex Bowman's won at Vegas before. The all-time win leader, well, at least tied for the all-time win leader, Jimmy Johnson, has 4 wins there as well. The 48 car has had a lot of success there, so maybe he can get in there, get a top 10, maybe top 5. Wouldn't surprise me all that much. And I really want to get to Tyler first on this. Right before I do want to mention I have heard a rumor, and I don't know how true or untrue this rumor may end up being. I think it was NASCAR Centel that posted it. And at first, when NASCAR Centel on Twitter was making posts, I didn't believe shit the motherfucker was saying. But then they started getting a bunch of stuff right. So I was like, okay, maybe this guy works for Hendrick or something. I don't know. But what he said that I think early April is when they're looking at Bowman maybe coming back. Like I said, that is a rumor. I don't know that for sure. Maybe he comes back for Darlington for all I know. But I do want to mention that just to get some people ready in case if that ends up happening. But Tyler, how do you feel about this opportunity for Allgaier? And you're going to be there in person to watch Justin Allgaier drive the number 48 car. You are by far the biggest Justin Allgaier fan I know. How do you feel about this?
I'm so excited that I am planning on having him sign my number 40 on Sunday just because he's going to be in a cup car and it's going to mean that much. Like, I am beyond excited for him to be in that 48 car. If anybody deserves to be in that 48 car all the time, it would be him, in my opinion. So, he deserves it. He beyond deserves it. And I'm so excited to be there in person for this.
Yeah, I'm very excited myself. I was somewhat curious on why they picked Alfredo, but when you really think about it, it makes a lot of sense. Alfredo has had a connection with Chevrolet for a good amount of time. Plus, Alfredo has actually good. He has way more Cup experience than Allgaier. You have to think if you think about it, and he has driven the next gen car. He's driven a whole maybe I think a whole season racing for Front Row in a next gen car. So he has a good amount of experience in that car. But now they've had a free week, a full week for Allgaier to get ready for Las Vegas, and I'm very interested to see what he can do out there. Cory, what are your thoughts on this? Justin Allgaier replacing Alex Bowman for Las Vegas Motor Speedway.
I think we've all been. I mean, I think it's mostly me and Tyler a little hard on Alex Bowman because it's always hard being, I won't say the worst talent wise, but the worst performing at Hendrick because you're just under a microscope at all times. And we want to root for him because he's from Arizona and we're in Arizona. So I hope he gets better. That's the first thing I'll say. And then Justin Allgaier deserves this opportunity. Like we all said, we'll say it again and again that Justin Allgaier deserves to be in the Cup Series. I don't think he chooses to be anymore. That's my opinion. But getting the 48 car as an opportunity for a full race is awesome. And hopefully, like you said, nothing happens to, mechanically. But, and then, like you mentioned in the Coke 600 in 2024, he was about to get lapped or got lapped and then raced his way back and then finished 13th when it got rained out. And that's insanely impressive when that's the only time you're running that car. So I can't wait to see how he does on Sunday.
Yeah, I think Allgaier is a super talented guy, and I kind of agree with what you said. I think it's kind of his choice to not race in the Cup Series. I think the only way you're going to see him race full time in the Cup Series is in that 48 car, or if Junior Motorsports decides to go full time Cup racing. I don't think he's going to be willing to race for anybody else at this point in his career, and I don't think there's going to be really a lot. There's not a lot of top ride opportunities. Like I don't expect him to get an offer from Joe Gibbs Racing to race next year or something like that. That's just not going to happen. They're going to get Brent Cruz or somebody else like that. That's just kind of how these things work nowadays when it comes to contracts and jumping from team to team. So Allgaier at this point, I think, is an O'Reilly driver for life, unless Junior Motorsports decides to go Cup racing or for some odd. I still doubt he would get the 48 car. I still think that would be a long shot for him. I think that ride is for Corey Day or Raja Caruth next year, most likely, depending on if one of them are great performers. And maybe if both of them don't perform too well, I could see Alex Bowman returning again for next year. If both Raja and Corey Day, for example, both don't win races and both aren't all that competitive in the chase, I doubt they would send him up to the Cup Series because they wouldn't be ready. So maybe Bowman gets another year in that car next year. And I've talked many times how I'm a big fan of Bowman on this podcast and on any of my shows. I'm a big supporter of Alex Bowman, but you're of course gonna not look the greatest when your three teammates are Kyle Larson, possibly the best driver in the world, Chase Elliott, probably the most consistent driver in the world, and then William Byron, one of the best young NASCAR drivers in the world and a back-to-back Daytona 500 champion. It's you're not gonna look.
Yep.
No one's gonna look very great against those guys. Like there's very few drivers that are gonna look they're going to stand up to those guys that are in the sport right now. Like you got Denny Hamlin, Joey Logano, Ryan Blaney, Kyle Busch. A couple years ago, Kyle Busch, maybe Tyler Reddick. Those guys can maybe stand toe to toe with them, but other than them, those are the best drivers in the sport by far. So I don't know what the future is for Bowman. I hope we see him back in the car here in a couple weeks, but a wonderful opportunity for Justin Allgaier, Alligator, Lil Gator. Just an awesome opportunity, and I hope he's able to race the full race and have success. I hope he gets a top 15, top 10. I think that would be a win for me. like looking at Allgaier, if he's able to get a top 15, I think that's a hell of a race. Top 10, top 5, that's insane. But we'll have to see what Allgaier is able to do this upcoming weekend. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. How do you feel about Justin Allgaier driving the number 48 in Las Vegas Motor Speedway for Hendrick Motorsports, and the potential future of Alex Bowman? Maybe he comes back for Darlington. Maybe he comes back in April. Maybe he's having a Dale. That's one thing I'm very worried about, is a Dale Jr. Sort of situation here. We saw something very similar with Dale Jr. years ago, and guess who that gave their big time big break to? Alex Bowman. So it would be kind of ironic in a way, kind of almost storybook in a pretty shitty way for Bowman, but he might go out the same way he came in to the sport. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. All right. Our next thing isn't really necessarily a news story, but me and Tyler did catch up and watch the NASCAR Full Speed Daytona 500 on Prime Video documentary, and it was pretty freaking awesome. I kind of want to give this to Tyler first, because I feel like his thoughts are going to be a little bit more organized on it. Because I think Tyler, I think you've seen it twice, or maybe you've seen it 3 or 4 times by this point. But how did you feel about it?
I watched it back to back. Yeah, man, that was the greatest NASCAR production we've seen in years. I mean, if it hadn't been done by Dale, usually it doesn't get done well at all. So, I mean, this production was beautiful. The camera angles they picked up were stunning. The storylines they found were just heart-wrenching in some spots and then beautiful in others. I mean, it was cool to see Connor get ready for his first race and be on a
Yeah.
personal level with him. You had Noah Gragson completely just break down and get as personal as he can as a person about his own personal life and struggles. I mean, that was awesome to see, because we all know him as the party man, so it was cool to see the other side of that man. I mean, you had Kyle's family in there. That was cool. Cool. I mean, all of it. It was so well done. And I so badly want them to do an episode of that for every race that we have, because I feel like you would have NASCAR fans coming from everywhere. It felt like watching the NFL Films breakdown when they do their movie
Yep.
types
Yep.
breakdowns for the end of the
A
week.
football
And
life.
yeah, it was super cool. It was super cool to see, and we need more of that. This is why I love Prime. This is why I support Prime, and this is why keep yelling from the rooftops, give every race to Prime. I love the history of Fox. I love the history of NBC and everything else that they have, but they do not give the time of day like Amazon has. And man, they're killing it. They're killing it.
Yeah, I think Prime Video has just done a killer job ever since they got NASCAR. Because last year they had that Earnhardt documentary, and I personally thought that was the best thing I've ever seen NASCAR wise. Because before the Earnhardt documentary that we had, the docu series that we had last year come out, before that I probably would have said it was the NASCAR IMAX thing that they did years and years ago. I thought that was pretty good. And then any sort of Dale Earnhardt, they probably have like 10 Dale Earnhardt documentaries at this point. All of them are pretty good in their own way, and they're sentimental. They have that Tim Richmond 30 for 30 with ESPN that I think is fantastic. But this was by far the best. Those first like 5 minutes gave me goosebumps with the music they were playing, the scenes they were showing, and how much NASCAR in the Daytona 5, like they would take like one word from each of the drivers, like Daytona is this or this. And it was just, I think they did all that perfectly. All the music choices they did throughout the whole entire thing was perfect for each moment. Just the graphics they were able to put in there, the production value when it comes to the videos, when it comes to the sounds, all that was killer. The fact that the Daytona 500 was what, less than a month ago, and they got all this out, that's insane. They picked the perfect people to represent NASCAR in this first edition of Full Speed on Prime. They had Connor Zilisch, who's, in my opinion, the future of the sport, is going to be a future Cup Series champion one day in his first ever Daytona 500, and that's going to be a good thing to look back on like 20 years from now if Connor Zilisch ends up being what we think he's going to be. I think that's going to be extremely cool to look back on. Hey, let's go look at Connor Zilisch in his first Daytona 500, and let's look back at that. Like, that's going to be really cool. Noah Gragson, in my opinion, is the best personality in NASCAR. He's had so much success just flying through the ranks. He's always been a very successful driver, and he's kind of stalled out since getting to the Cup Series. So a guy that we see that's always partying and having just a badass time and always seems happy no matter what. To see that other side of him where he's almost a little bit depressed about not performing the way he feels like he should perform. And then everything about his dad, that was really heart-wrenching, how his dad ended up killing somebody in a DUI accident years ago, and he's been in prison for the last number of years. And the only time he could visit his dad is on Sundays, and Noah Gragson races on Sundays, so he never gets to see his dad. So it was really, really cool to see the other side of Noah Gragson, his more sentimental side, something we haven't really seen from him at all. I kind of look at him as like the modern day Tim Richmond. That's what I look at him as. And to see that other sentimental side of him, I think was very cool. And then for me, Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch is my favorite driver. He's trying to win his first Daytona 500, and it's the big talking point anytime we go to Daytona. Is this the year that Kyle Busch wins it? Next year? Is this the year that Kyle Busch wins it? The next year? Is this the year that Kyle Busch wins it? Before Tony Stewart retired, that's what the question was. Is Tony Stewart going to win it this year? Is Tony Stewart? Because the greatest drivers in our sport are expected to win the 500 at some point, but not all of them do. Tony Stewart's one of the greatest drivers of all time, and he never won the Daytona 500. It's happened to many drivers. Darrell Waltrip had to wait forever to get his 500, and Dale Earnhardt, of course, had to wait forever to get his and got his in 98. So that was cool to see his perspective and kind of see his emotions after not winning the 500 once again. Also seeing his emotions when he won the pole as well, I think was really cool. And then Brad Keselowski's in the same boat as Kyle Busch. Like he's never won the Daytona 500. He's one of the most successful drivers in NASCAR history. If Kyle Busch ends up winning the Daytona 500, the next question is going to be, all right, Kyle Busch won it. When's Brad Keselowski winning the Daytona 500? Like he's the next guy for that question. Also seeing his recovery with his leg injury, I thought that was very cool to see behind closed doors and see Pimp Keselowski trying to recover for the Daytona 500. It just proves how much of a badass Brad Keselowski is. Even one thing, also combining the Kyle Busch and Brad Keselowski stuff. Kyle Busch acknowledged him not having the black hat anymore and talking about everything that happened, how he wrecked Dale Jr., how Brad Keselowski went to Bristol and said, Kyle Busch is an ass, and all that stuff. Like, it was great. Prime did an amazing job. I told you, Tyler, I personally think this was a tester for them to potentially do a chase version of this later on in the year. Or maybe what Cory said, that maybe a crown jewel sort of thing. I think that would be very interesting as well. Maybe do some crown jewel specials and then have like a full season for the chase. Because I overall think this is their idea of competition to Drive to Survive on Netflix with Formula One. And I think that was the idea when they first started doing it, when they did it on Netflix. And I just don't think they did a good job. I think Prime did a way better job with just an hour and a half documentary compared to the docu-series that they did on Netflix. And I would like to see them bring this back for the chase, and maybe with how quick they're able to turn this stuff around, maybe release a chase version of a docu-series starting on Christmas, and maybe lead up to the Daytona 500 and release an episode each week leading up to the Daytona 500 or something like that. I think that would be really cool, a really good idea. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. How did you feel about NASCAR full speed on Prime for the Daytona 500? If you've seen it yet, if you haven't seen it yet, hopefully what we said here today convinces you, because that was great. It was really good from all fronts, in my opinion, and it sounds like in Tyler's opinion as well. The greatest documentary or anything NASCAR outside of the racing itself that they've ever done. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. All right. Now that we are done with all of that, it's time to look ahead to the future as we look ahead to Las Vegas Motor Speedway this weekend. Should be some good racing, and we'll get the boys and my thoughts on Las Vegas Motor Speedway, and we'll go into our weekly picks as the standings are very close right now. Cory and Tyler are tied up top with 17 points, and I'm 1 point behind with 16 points. But before we get to that, we got to go through the weekend schedule and the weekend facts. So let's start with the weekend schedule for Las Vegas Motor Speedway. On Saturday, we have O'Reilly Series practice at noon on the CW app. And at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, we have O'Reilly Series qualifying on the CW app. And then not too far after that, at 2:30 p.m., we have Cup Series practice on Prime Video, immediately followed by Cup Series qualifying, also on Prime Video. And then for some reason, they dropped the mileage number from the O'Reilly race. Last couple of years have been the Luana 300 or the Luana 301 or something like that. This year, it's just the Luana, which cool. I don't understand that. At 5:30 p.m. on the CW. And then on Sunday at 4 p.m., we do have the Pennzoil 400 on Fox Sports 1. And then I would also like to make another note that on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night, so March 12th, 13th, and 14th, at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, we will have racing at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway dirt track, as High Limit Racing has their first 3 races of the season. So the season opener will be on Thursday, and then we have the second and third races on Friday and Saturday, starting roughly around 7 p.m., and you can watch that live on Flow Racing. All right, now let's move to the weekend facts. We have the Pennzoil 400 at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. The stages end at lap 80, 165, and it's a 267 lap event. Las Vegas, of course, is located in northern Las Vegas, Nevada. A 1.5-mile speedway. The speedway was built and opened in 1996, but they didn't have their first Cup Series race until 1998. I found it interesting that they actually had an O'Reilly Series race here before they had the Cup Series race, which I found very interesting. And that race was on March 1st, and it was won by Mark the Kid Martin back in 1998. The active win leader is Smokin' Joey Logano with 4 wins. The all-time win leader is tied with him, and that would be Jimmy Johnson. Last year's winner, of course, in the spring, we had Josh Berry get his first career win, and then Denny Hamlin's very emotional victory in the fall race. The notable entries that we have this weekend: the Truck Series are once again off this week, and they will return next week for Darlington. But in the O'Reilly Series, we have Cole Custer racing for SS Greenlight in the number 0, essentially a third Haas factory team car right there. The number 1 will be Connor Zilic, so that will have Carson Quaffle actually move over to the number 9 this weekend for Junior Motorsports. In the number 19, we have Chase Briscoe racing for Joe Gibbs Racing. And then in the number 88 all-star car, I would say, for Hendrick/Junior Motorsports, being Kyle Larson. And then in the NASCAR Cup, a busy weekend for Kyle Larson. He's going to be doing a lot of racing. And then in the NASCAR Cup Series, we really only have one notable entry. Wouldn't have any if Bowman wasn't dealing with this vertigo, but we do have the one notable entry of Justin Allgaier driving in the number 48. And then the weekend weather report, it looks the same for Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Around race time, it should be mid-80s, maybe low 80s, maybe a couple of clouds in the sky, but no chance of rain. And also, if you are watching on video format, it's not listed on here, but on Thursday, the weather also looks the exact same for anybody that's trying to attend the High Limit season opener. It looks like we're not going to get any rain all weekend, maybe some slight winds. Actually doesn't look as windy as it usually does at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, so that's pretty exciting for us being fans at the racetrack, that it might not be super windy this weekend. All right, now that we are through the weekend facts and the weekend schedule, let's give our Las Vegas Motor Speedway thoughts and what our thoughts are on the racetrack, whether that's the infield or the racing itself. I'm personally a big fan of Las Vegas Motor Speedway. I wouldn't say it's one of the best 1.5 miles when it comes to the racing product. I think it tends to put on a very good race. It really just depends on what you like. Sometimes it gets spread out. Sometimes we do have long green flag runs. But if we do get some cautions, it's one of those tracks that cautions breed cautions, because the restarts sometimes get pretty crazy at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, because I consider 3 and 4 pretty multi-groove. You can get all the way up against the wall, and you can race all the way up against the bottom. I think 1 and 2 is a lot flatter than 3 and 4, so it's a little bit more difficult to go side by side. The very high lane up against the wall tends to not be that strong for many drivers out in the field. until they get spread out. When they get spread out, I see that highlight get a little bit more use. So maybe we can see some craziness on some of these restarts. I expect a lot of strategy throughout the weekend. Not sure what the tire situation might look like. We might have some tire fall off. We might not. I would expect probably not getting nearly as much tire fall off in Phoenix, obviously, but I don't expect a whole bunch of tire fall off. So I would expect to maybe see some two tire strategies at certain points in the race, stuff like that. And overall, I just love the facility. Las Vegas Motor Speedway is just a great racetrack, best infield experience in NASCAR, I would say. And the camping is what it is. I wouldn't say it's, if you're looking for more of a family friendly sort of environment, I think Las Vegas is surprisingly a good track for you because everybody that's partying is on the strip. They're not at the racetrack. So I think it's more of a family environment if that's your thing. When I go to the racetrack, I like a party environment personally, but that's not everybody's thing when they go to the racetrack. Some people just want to hang out, drink a couple beers, and watch the race, and not have to worry about anything. So, but it's a great racetrack that has infield camping, and I really enjoy it. Cory, what are your thoughts on Las Vegas Motor Speedway?
I mean, as a whole, it's awesome. Just from the stands perspective, watching the race, you can see the whole race from the stands, like the whole track. You can't say that about every single track you go to, especially Phoenix. I feel like you can't see turn 1 and 2 as a whole, versus at Vegas, you can see the whole track. Being in the infield and watching them practice and qualify around you is surreal. The infield experience is crazy because you can be above or right next to the cars while they're working on them. And I mean, Vegas as a whole is awesome. I love it.
Yeah, Las Vegas, I think, is overall a good time. Tyler, I know you're a big fan of Las Vegas Motor Speedway. How do you feel about the racetrack racing wise and at track just as a fan wise, I guess, as well?
And it's a great time. They put on for some great racing, some very intense racing. I mean, I think it was my first visit to Vegas when I seen Tyler Reddick flip in the grass.
Yep,
So,
I
I
remember.
mean, it's it's been some awesome racing we've seen there. So it never disappoints on that aspect. And personally, like you've said before, the infield at Vegas is just wow. To me, it feels like you're in the Cars movie, personally. You feel like you've become Lightning McQueen. Like, it's one hell of an experience, and you'll never get another one like it, that's for sure.
One thing I do find interesting about Las Vegas Motor Speedway is some people don't know this track is in a bowl. It's in a bowl. You know, when you walk into the track, you're pretty much walking down into the track for parts of it. Like it's not a part of it's above the bowl a little bit, like the stem of the stands are above the bowl, but the track is inside the bowl. They had to dig into the ground to build this track, which I find very interesting. And also, you mentioned Tyler Reddick flipping. I bought this shirt. This was the car that Tyler Reddick flipped, the shirt I'm wearing right now at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. I got it that morning that he flipped. So I found that was crazy. I still can't believe that happened at Las Vegas Motor Speedway when he flipped across the grass. I wouldn't expect that. That was the only time anybody's ever flipped at Las Vegas Motor Speedway in a cup car. Obviously, we've had some gnarly incidents there in the IndyCar series, like rest in peace to Dan Weldon, one of the greatest of all time. That's probably one of the reasons why IndyCar series doesn't go there anymore. But it's a great racetrack. It's a lot of fun. It tends to get windy out there a little bit, but it's a great track, a great environment. And anybody that's out there, I recommend going to the racetrack and enjoying the race yourself. If not, watch it on TV because I would say it's in the top half of most entertaining tracks. I wouldn't say it's the most entertaining track. It's definitely not the most entertaining mile and a half or mile plus track on the schedule, but overall it's fairly entertaining. And hopefully we get another good race because this Cup Series season has started so strong with two straight fantastic races at Daytona and Atlanta. Well, Daytona wasn't fantastic, but it was overall a good race, and Atlanta was fantastic. I thought Circuit of the Americas put on a good show. We had the three-peat from Tyler Reddick, and then Phoenix put on the best race ever, the best race they've ever had. And maybe we can go 5 for 5 with barn burner sort of races. That would be pretty cool to see. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. How do you feel about Las Vegas Motor Speedway? And have you been there before? Let me know. All right, now that we've gone through all that, before we finish up the show, we have to go through our weekly picks. So let's go through our weekly picks this week. Let me pull them up here. I think it's 5. There you go. Okay, so here are our weekly picks and how our standings are currently looking post Las Vegas. Motor Speedway. I'm currently last in the standings, but this past week I was able to snag 4 points, 2 points for finishing second, and then 2 points for a top 5, getting me up to 16 points, but I am last in the standings by only 1 point. Got a second place finish with Christopher Bell. Then second in the standings, we have a tie for first, but the guy that will end up picking second this week will be Tyler, who picked William Byron this past week, and William Byron got him a top 10, so that was a bonus point. Plus, he had the 1 point for finishing third, so he got 2 points, and he moves up to 17 points on the season after picking William Byron. So he'll get the second pick, even though he's tied with Cory. The tiebreak, the way our picks, the order, I should say, I was about to say organization, the order that it goes in is last in points to first in points. If there is ever a tie in the standings, whoever gets the worst finish from the previous week gets the tiebreaker. So Tyler would get the tiebreaker because William Byron got him a 7th place finish. And then I mentioned a little bit earlier, I'll mention it again, Cory did get the first win on the year out of our weekly picks with the race winning pick of Ryan fucking Blaney as his pick. He was the race winner, and he jumped from the bottom to the top. He has 17 points now out in front, and a great start of the year for pretty much all of us, I would say. If you look at our average finishes, Tyler with the 6.6, I have a 7.8, and Cory has a 10.2. So we're all averaging 10th place or above right now, which is a pretty interesting start to the year. I'm pretty surprised about it. And now we're on to Las Vegas Motor Speedway. And so let's get into our weekly picks. And also would like to note that me and Tyler still have our Hail Mary bonus available, our tinfoil hat bonus, whatever you want to call it. We can use that this week. Of course, Cory already used it. He used it at Hotlanta with Carson Hocevar, who ended up getting him some bonus points that week. So I get the first pick. I've been kind of debating on this throughout most of the day between two different drivers. I've been debating between Joey Logano and my pick of Chase Briscoe. I think Chase Briscoe is going to turn it around this week. He's looked amazing the last couple of weeks. I wouldn't say Las Vegas is not necessarily one of his better tracks, but with how bad Chase Briscoe has been, he's been performing well, just hasn't gotten the finishes over the last couple of weeks. I think the other shoe got to drop good every once in a while, right? It got to be good every once in a while. So Chase Briscoe, I think he's going to turn around this week. He is my pick to win at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, the driver of the number 19 Bass Pro Shops Toyota. And that will give the second pick off to Tyler. Tyler, and obviously if you're going to use your Hail Mary bonus, wait until the end and I will ask you at the end. But who is your main pick? Who is your primary pick for Las Vegas?
Give me Christopher Bell to make up for his loss for Phoenix.
That's a good pick. I like that pick. Christopher Bell is very good at Vegas. He's won here before. He almost won here a couple of years ago if when Joey Logano was saving gas and Ryan Blaney was kind of blocking for him. If that didn't happen, maybe Christopher Bell would have won that race and maybe went on to win the championship. Who knows what would have happened if that happened? Who knows? So we both picked Joe Gibbs Racing drivers so far, as Tyler picks Christopher Bell, the driver of the number 20 for Joe Gibbs Racing. Cory, who is your pick to win at Las Vegas Motor Speedway?
Tyler, you took my backup, so I'm good. I'm taking number 5, Kyle Larson, to win at Las Vegas this week. Let's go. That's
a good take. It's going to be a busy weekend for Larson, too. I don't know if he's racing in all 3 high-limit races. I think he is. I'm not positive on that, though, but I think he's racing in all 3 high-limit races. He's racing in the O'Reilly Series in the number 88, and he's racing the number 5 on Sunday. And he's won at Las Vegas Motor Speedway 3 times. If he gets the win this weekend, he would tie the all-time win leaders of Jimmy Johnson and Joey Logano of Las Vegas Motor Speedway. So that's a good pick as well. So Cory ends up picking Kyle Larson, the driver of the number 5 for Hendrick Motorsports in that Chevrolet. And then this is when I'll make my call. Tyler, are you going to make your Hail Mary bonus pick this week?
Am.
The Gator. The Gator.
That would be a wild one. Who is your, and just to before you make your pick, just to go over this one more time, the way this works. If he gets to make a Hail Mary bonus, and either me or Cory can deny him on that bonus. But then if he could maybe pick even a better driver for his second pick, and whoever, like for example, if I deny Tyler right now, I'm not allowed to deny him a second time. It's Cory's job at that point to deny him, and if he doesn't, he gets his pick, whoever it is. It might be William Byron for all we know. It could be anybody. Who knows? But Tyler, who is your Hail Mary bonus pick?
Man, I hope he's driving the Mood Casino, because give me Carson.
Carson Hocevar is the Hail Mary bonus pick. No, I'm going to deny it. I got to deny it. I'm sorry. I already let him have it. I already let Cory have it, and that was a mistake.
We just all choose Hocevar every time.
Yeah. Yeah, Hocevar is the good one. Okay, so now the way this works, Tyler could either save his Hail Mary bonus and use it another week, or he can have a second attempt at it, but Cory has to be the one to deny him. I can't do anything about it. So Tyler,
That's okay. We'll save it.
You're gonna save it.
It was Ride the Dente anyways, if that makes you feel a little bit better.
Honestly, if Cory never made that pick of Hocevar and I let him have it, I was like, Hocevar's just gonna wreck himself. So I just let him have it. If he didn't already win big with Hocevar, I would have been like, you know what? Go ahead.
If it makes you feel any worse, I totally wasn't going to block it.
Oh, you were going to block?
I was not going to block it.
That's because no one blocked your Hocevar.
Yeah, I was going to let him Hocevar.
Now, this is a competition here, all right? We ain't giving handouts out here, all right? No handouts out here. You got to pick Riley Herbst or something like that.
We're blocking him twice, Tyler. We're blocking him twice.
The thing is, I'm going to pick like drivers that you're just going to block me.
He's like, I choose Cody Ware. Accepted.
Accepted. That's the only one that's acceptable is Cody Ware. All right, but that will do it. That will do it for this week's edition of Hit the Pacecar post Phoenix, looking ahead to Las Vegas Motor Speedway this weekend, where we'll all be in attendance. Me and Cory will be there pretty much all weekend. We'll be on the strip on Friday, but other than that, we'll be there all weekend long. Tyler's not going to be too far from the track. He'll be there throughout most of the weekend as well. So it'll be a good time this weekend. And now I'll send it to the boys for last words. Cory, do you have any last words for the people?
No, I'm good. Let's go racing, baby.
All right. That's a good one right there. Tyler, do you have any last words for the people?
And get lucky this weekend.
Yeah, get lucky this weekend.
Kyle Busch fans right there.
Yeah, Kyle Busch fans. Yeah, that would be crazy if Kyle Busch got back to victory lane in Vegas. I don't see it coming. I don't even see Kyle Busch getting to top 10 personally. But that would be awesome. That would be freaking awesome. We're going streaking. That would be me. Yeah, they're back there. They're coming. I'll do my best Will Ferrell on that one. Get in the car. But let me know your thoughts in the comments about anything we talked about here today on Hit the Pacecar, and we'll see you again next week on our normal day. I think probably on our normal day next week. But like I said, let me know your thoughts about everything we talked about today here in the comments, whether it's the O'Reilly race, Cup Series race, Desert Double, Justin Allgaier in the 48 car, NASCAR Full Speed, and also give your Las Vegas Motor Speedway predictions. Who's your pick to win the Cup Series race, O'Reilly Series race? Maybe even let me know who your pick is to win the high limit races, maybe the season opener on Thursday. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. But for now, I'm Trackside Larry. They're the Pacecar boys, and I'm saying peace.